Hello, everybody. I hope that you're having an amazing day today. We have coming up another amazing talk with the one and only Ron Dagdag. The talk for today is going to be about mixed reality for JavaScript developers. So I'd like to make a very quick intro about you. But before, Ron, how are you doing today?
I am doing well. I'm doing well
Thank
today. Thank you for asking.
Thank you for joining. So, I like to tell you that Ron is a seasoned software artisan with over 20 years of experience in the industry. He currently manages teams of software engineers at 7-Eleven, where he drives the development of innovative solutions in IoT, Internet of Things, cloud, and machine learning, utilizing his leadership skills. So, there are more even accolades about Ron that maybe he can let us know during the presentation. But this is great because anybody who is involved with JavaScripting or something like that is going to find a lot of value for this presentation about mixed reality. Thank you so much, Ron. And if you are ready, we can get started.
Yes, I am ready.
Awesome. I'll be here in the background.
All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, everywhere and around the world, in our virtual world today. My name is Ron Dagdag, and today I will be talking about mixed reality for JavaScript developers. A little bit of background about me. I'm an R&D engineer manager at 7-Eleven. And also I'm a Microsoft MVP for mixed reality, Internet of Things, and AI. I've been first awarded back in 2017. So it's my 7th year as a Microsoft MVP. Let's get started. Also in between my presentation, I'm going to talk about something like most likely you all are familiar with. They used to be called Magic Cube, but it's a Rubik's Cube. So a lot of my demo relates to Rubik's Cube today. Okay, on our agenda, we'll be talking about what is mixed reality, and then what is WebXR, and the different types of virtual reality experiences, different types of augmented reality experiences. And then we'll talk about all the different open source JavaScripts available for us to get started with WebXR. All right. So some takeaways, and I always want to talk about that so I don't waste everyone's time. And if you're interested more, feel free to stand by and ask questions on the chat, and we'll talk more later and answer some of the questions. We have a lot of topic to discuss today. What is mixed reality? It's a blend of physical and digital world. And what is WebXR? The different types of the non-immersive, semi-immersive, and fully immersive, the types of augmented reality, and then the open source JavaScript. I'll talk a little bit about Model Viewer, A-Frame, MindAR, Babylon.js, 3JS, and all the different JavaScript libraries out there. Okay, what is mixed reality? We are in a conference today talking about mixed reality. It is a blend of physical and digital world, and it is unlocking the natural and intuitive 3D side, right? It's not just not just the human, but also the computer and the environment interaction. So there's three areas where you have the human, the computer, and the environment working together to produce the mixed reality spectrum. Human and computer, usually we talk about that as a human-computer interaction. A lot of the UX that is available, not just on the phones and all that, on your laptops, it talks about how you interact with the computer. They're human and then environment. Usually that's conventional reality. We all live in it, and that's how we interact with our environment. Computer and environment, that's when you have robots being able to look through what is around its environment in order to understand what's going on. But now if you add human in the loop, that is what we call mixed reality. So mixed reality is happening because of the advancement, not just in the computer vision space, but also in the graphical processing, display technologies, input systems, cloud computing. Because of all these advancement, these are different technologies that it's given us, the environmental understanding, especially spatial mapping and anchors, the human understanding side, hand tracking, eye tracking, speech input. And then there's the spatial sound, which is a lot of the new devices that came out already includes a lot of these technologies, the location and the positioning where it can identify the physical and virtual space, and then also making it easy to create 3D assets in mixed reality spaces. It's becoming more and more easier to create 3D assets, not just because of the tools, but also AI is helping towards that. So most likely you've already seen the spectrum between reality and virtuality. And mixed reality is actually somewhere in between. And there's two types of mixed reality. There is the augmented reality and then augmented virtuality. The difference is that you have the virtual objects, or in the augmented reality, virtual objects comes into the virtual the space, all right? And augmented virtuality is you're bringing in real world objects into the virtual space. So different types of virtual reality experiences out there. There is non-immersive VR, semi-immersive VR, fully immersive VR, and then social VR. Non-immersive, most likely you've played video games, and a lot of the video games out there have the non-immersive VR. They have virtual objects and at the same time. And then the semi-immersive is a good example of that is the 360 virtual tour. And a lot of it is YouTube has a lot of the 360 virtual tools that are available out there. And that you can actually experience now. It's becoming more common. And then the fully immersive VR it does block out the real world, and it completely immerses the user in the virtual world. And then, of course, with all the different devices that we have, there's the social VR that's more collaborative, where you have the the multiple users to interact with each other in the virtual environment. And then on the types of augmented reality, there's 5 types. There's the marker-based AR, where you need a marker in order to trigger a display on the virtual content. And then there's the markerless AR, where you use the computer vision to track the real-world environment to display the contents in the marker. So the difference is marker-based, it's trying to find a specific item or specific kind of like a QR code, right, or an image in order to be able to trigger the environment. And then there's the location-based AR, which is you use CV or GPS to display the virtual content in a specific location. And a lot of games have done that. I believe Pokemon is a good example of that in the past. And then there's projection-based AR, where you're using projector to display the virtual content on the real-world surface and make it interactive. And then the superimposition-based AR, where you overlay the virtual objects in the real world to provide real-time information. So you look at it maybe in the factory, you're walking with your glasses, and it gives you some information about what's happening around you based from what you're looking at. So you superimposed some IoT data or something like that. So those are the different types of augmented reality experience that is possible right now. And I don't know if you've noticed that a lot of technologies out there, it's been around us. A lot of these augmented reality experience and even VR experiences, we started not to call them VR. It started to change the way we experience, because it's becoming part of the app itself, becoming part of the game itself, and be able to experience it. We just grab the device and there you go. You can start playing it, and you don't call it the social VR anymore. You just call it whatever the name of the game is, and even the augmented reality experiences. It's becoming more and more as part of the application itself in order to increase sales. So if you think about, there's ways and you can have a furniture display on some shopping website and use AR capability to be able to see how that product fits in the living room or something like that. So it's becoming part of the application. Even though we call it augmented reality experiences, it's just another feature that we added to these applications. In terms of our we're going back to Rubik's Cube. There are 43 quintillion possible combinations and one solution, right? So that is a lot to consider. So what is WebXR? WebXR is a unified API for VR and AR devices. The goal of WebXR is it's another abstraction on the web platform in order to have an API to access the VR and AR devices, right? The VR and AR sensors out there. So it's the best way to get started if you go to immersiveweb.dev. And it is a web platform and ecosystem. Even though iOS support, yes, it's still experimental in the Vision OS. They're still lacking at this moment iOS support on these WebXR, but it's getting there. It's getting into Safari. But what is the advantages of WebXR? Is there are 4 things, right? One is open platform. That means that it's permissionless publishing. If I can build a website, and if I want to create an XR website, I can just the same steps, right? You don't have to go through a store in order to, or the marketplace in order to, for other people to install your apps to whichever they can go to that. You can share a link, right? You send them a link and then they'll be able to experience that if, of course, the hardware, their phone does have that capability, or even their headsets have that capability. Then it's accessible. it is low barrier of entry. There's a lot more JavaScript developers out there in the world as compared to like maybe C# developers for Unity. There's a lot more people that can do program web development rather than app development. So it becomes a lower barrier of entry in order to do WebXR. And then it's, of course, it's cross-platform. Cross-platform meaning it's just works. Just like websites, of course, there's backwards compatibility. There's things that you have to consider whenever you're doing any web project. But the goal is, it is cross-platform. It'll work not just on your phone, right? If you have an Android phone, or one of these XR devices or Meta Quest devices, or some of them that has browsers, because a lot of these new devices, I mean HoloLens, a lot of these have a browser, and these browsers do support WebXR already out of the box. So what is the difference between OpenXR and WebXR? I mean, OpenXR is another standard or another community out there that's building abstraction on top of the display and the input for XR technologies. So WebXR and OpenXR, they both is an abstraction of display and input. But the difference is on WebXR, it is a website that you're building. On OpenXR, it's actually an installed app that you're building. For WebXR, it is OS independent. That means you write the same app, and and it would work on both devices. It might be on the phone or on the headset devices. But for OpenXR, it is OS dependent, and it's an app per OS. So if you're building one that would run on a specific device, then it had to be compiled for that specific device. Feel free to put in the chat if you have questions. I'll be able to answer them later on. So, okay, going back to our Rubik's Cube, the world record actually just got beaten this year alone. Max Park breaks the 3x3 Rubik's Cube world record in just 3 seconds. It's amazing how he was able to solve it in 3 seconds. I tell you, I can't solve these in 3 seconds. Yes, it's amazing. Okay, so looking at all the different JavaScript libraries out there today, I'll talk about Model Viewer, A-Frame, MindAR, Babylon.js, 3JS, a little bit about MediaPipe and Play Canvas. And if I have some time, I'll show a little bit more on how you would do mixed reality on some of on A-Frame. So Model Viewer. It is an easy way to get into use. If you go to modelviewer.dev, it can display, it's specifically made for displaying a 3D model and viewing it in AR. And it's easy as you just create an application. Let's see if I can get there. So this is modelviewer.dev. Notice how there's few lines in order to kind of build these scenario. So you can actually go to the editor, just upload. So there's a script. You need the module, and then you have the module viewer tag in HTML, specify the 3D model, and then there you go. You'll have some of that. It's easy to start with. So let's see that on some of the example that I have. Let's see if I can get to my phone out here. This is my phone. Notice how let's start with model viewer. Okay. So, and this is on my GitHub, and I'll share this later on. So this is, a 3D model of the Rubik's Cube, and I can click on this view in your space. See if it'll show up right there. So you notice how I have 3D, and make it smaller. and I can rotate it, place it in the room. And just like that, I have an AR experience using this tool. Cool. So in a few lines of code, you can actually do this. Okay, going back to the Rubik's Cube, 2.5, the most expensive Rubik's Cube is actually, it costs about $2.5 million. That is back in 1995 when we commemorate the 15th year anniversary of that. It's amazing how it has rubies and diamonds and different gems to build this Rubik's Cube. And it is playable. That is very important. Okay, another one is we can use A-Frame. It's a web framework for building 3D, AR, and VR experiences using a combination of HTML and JavaScript. This is a simplest example I can find, an A-Frame, where it's an HTML page. You just have a script in the one that you need for A-Frame. And then in this case, I have a scene, and I have a box, a sphere, and a cylinder. I specify the radius of that sphere, specify it. It looks familiar as a web developer. It is a good place to start, identifying the colors. And then the position, it locates it in 3D space, so X, Y, and Z, and it is actually in meters, virtual meters, as they consider that. And then you can specify the background. In this case, you specify the sky or the color of the surroundings, and then the position. And then that's it. You have your initial experience in 3D, AR, and VR, and it would look something like this, right? You'll be able to have it in 3D, and of course you can have that in VR space. You can zoom in and out, so it's a 3D space. So let's look at that on the sample that I have on my phone. See if I can get that one. Okay, so I have this A-frame, which is one of the examples I do have in here. Notice how I go to this side, I have the Rubik's Cube in the middle, and I have the sky. I changed the background to a 360 image. And notice how there's a button. Let's see if I can get to there. There's button below, and it has a AR and VR. If I click AR, it points back to where I can place the item below on that. Okay. All right then. Let's go back to that. Hold on a second. Excuse me. Get to the... Sorry about that. Okay. Let's continue on with the presentation. Let's go to the next step. Okay, someone solved the Rubik's Cube while while skydiving. Dan Knight jumped out of the plane and solved the puzzle in 30 seconds. And it took him about 30 seconds from the start to solve the puzzle while skydiving. Isn't that amazing? Okay, now next up, we'll talk about MindAR. MindAR is a web augmented reality library. It does support image tracking and face tracking. In this case, let's see if I can go back to the code and I can show you how that one is. It is on GitHub. You can actually, the documentation is there. And it is actually running on top of A-Frame, where you have your some of the JavaScript libraries that you need to include. And then in this case, the difference is you're looking for a target, right? In this case, we're doing we're doing not a marker list, but it's marker based. So you're looking for a marker, and on top of that marker, you're displaying something on top of that. And then in this case, I have some assets I wanted to showcase, or I wanted to show the Rubik's Cube, and then it knows where to position that model. GLTF, or the GLB, is the binary version of the GLTF. which is a 3D model or a 3D file format that you can have your 3D models be stored on. So based from this, let's see if I can get to the code here. Okay. Here's my code. Okay. So in this case, this is the code I have. I already have the A-frame. I'm currently working on Mind AR, and notice how I have this poster. Okay. And the same code. Let me see if I can unlock my phone. Okay. And now, in this case, I'm using Mind AR. And this Mind AR, I'm looking for, it's looking for a 3D or a poster, or looking for the specific marker, right? In this case, the marker is this one right here. And then once it finds it, it puts something on top of that. So this is useful for other things, right? If you want a marker-based reality, mixed reality, or augmented reality. Okay, so that's a good example of how you would create a in Mind AR. Okay. There's also Pictorize Studio, which makes it easy to create these, and it is something that if you want some videos, or if you want some experiences that you can press button, like on a business card or animated models, that is a good way on how you can start using it. This is actually on top of Mind AR. So it kind of looks like this if you run it, where you can have a piece of paper and it can scan that marker and then have the model on top of it. Okay, the largest Rubik's Cube, I don't know if you can see this, but it's 1.57 meters tall and wide. And that is one of the largest Rubik's Cube out there. Okay, all right, now we'll continue on. Well, this time, we'll talk about Babylon.js. Babylon.js is a 3D, real-time 3D game engine that is built in TypeScript, and it does support WebXR out of the box, gaze, teleportation support, also some AR experimental features. It is an open source library that's created specifically for animations, games running in. It's really fast, efficient, and flexible. Babylon.js has a lot of different tools to create 3D scenes, 3D models, to manipulate camera movements, physics, simulation, collision detection, and all that. It does support Android phones, HoloLens, Quest out of the box. So this is a good example. It has its own playground, and if you go to playground.babylonjs.com, it gives you like a way to start experimenting on this if you want to try it out. But it is in JavaScript. It all boils down to, like, you're a director, there's a scene, you got to figure out where to put the camera and everywhere else around it, and all the objects around it. In this case, we wanted to create a background scene, and then this one is running in AR. So, or this one is the VR experience. So in this case, if you run it, it would look something like this, where it goes to background. And I'm using a tool to be able to, like, as a web developer, it's harder to, like, okay, we have to wear this every time and then do this. And I think Mozilla has a tool to be able to kind of see what you need to be in VR, at the same time control the a virtual headset and what you can be looking at. So it does help in the development of experiences like this. So let's look at it on the demo that I do have. Okay, let's go back to my phone. Okay. In this case, we're using Babylon.js. So notice how I have this 3D model of the Rubik's Cube, and at the lower right corner, I can have an AR experience. Let's see if it's going to run. So sometimes it takes a while to load, going through this. Okay. See how it runs again. So now notice how I can place items. So we'll do that. Maybe it's oh, it's there. Okay, let's try again. Okay. There you go. So notice how I can move the circle and it will place, I can place the item where I need it to be. Okay. All right, so that's an example of simple example how you can use Babylon.js in order to have a mixed reality experience. Of course, Nike is actually using these to customize shoes. So they're using Babylon.js, so it's not just limited to like 3D models or having it in AR, but also it's being used in the wild in order uh, to do some customization on some of the items that you can purchase. 3JS, actually, a lot of the tools that I did talk about, like A-Frame, it does use 3JS. It's an abstraction on top of 3JS. 3JS is an open source cross-browser JavaScript library. It's been a while. It has large community, good documentation, many examples out there, specifically not just on the 3D graphics on the web, but they also have a way you can do WebXR on 3JS now. So WebXR and 3JS, here are some links and some introduction how you can use this, right? So here's actually a good example out there if you have some time, if you want to learn more about this, and you have a way to be able to create different experiences in VR using this. Okay. So here's actually a good tutorial that I found if you want to get started with WebXR using 3JS. Google has a tutorial step-by-step on how you would do this. And here's the example on how you can get started on it. Okay, let me see if I can show you a good example of this using 3JS. So notice how this 3JS, I can click this Start AR. And if I have to move back, it locates it to where I was sitting, or I have the box. So there's the box right there. And notice how it does tracking. It stays in the same place. Okay, going back to Rubik's Cube, always the fun part, is that the world record for for the largest or Rubik's Cube is 33 by 33 by 33. It is amazing because this is how they know if a Rubik's Cube is playable. Notice how it all has that hashes around, and that's how they would know if it's playable or not. So that tells you this Rubik's Cube 33 by 33 by 33 is a playable item. Okay. MediaPipe, it is an open source framework, cross-platform, multi-device application specifically for computer vision and media processing. I'd say this is not like your typical, WebXR. It's not really using WebXR in the backend. But what I'm saying is that I wanted to showcase this because it's something that is useful if you are a JavaScript developer and if you want to if you need something about face mesh, face detection, hand, manipulating with hands, pose, um, also object detection. There's Objectron, and there's a lot of available examples that you can do with this already, and you can do some stuff like this where you can do the face mesh, and I think it's a good tool to learn and maybe integrate to your application if you need something like that. Also, there is Play Canvas. Play Canvas is an open source HTML5 game engine that that's built in WebGL and GLTF, specifically for building games, playable ads, visualization, VR and AR. And the nice thing about it is that this is a good example of that, where I can have buttons to click to rotate the Rubik's Cube. Let's see if I can get to Play Canvas. Play Canvas. Let's see if I can. Yeah, so Play Canvas, you can actually create some games and all that too. It has all these different, engines. So the good thing about this is you have something to visualize all the things you're working on, and then be able to create the scene rather than creating the scene in code. You can have their visual experience to do this and all that too. Okay, so I can show you an example of what that looks like on the app here. So this one, we're using Play Canvas this time. So notice how on Play Canvas, I can click this button to do left or right, right? And I can do that in VR. If I do this in my Quest, I can see that one in the browser. And if I click VR, it would be in the VR mode. And if I can go on my phone and use AR mode, so I can click that. And notice how it has that capability of staying where it's at, and I can rotate the box left and right. Okay. So that is okay. Going back to the presentation, right there, and that is Play Canvas. Okay. I did talk a little bit about A-Frame. A-Frame is a web framework, a combination of HTML and JavaScript. But I wanted to talk more because it does run on entity component system, where you have entities, which is a general purpose objects, and then you can have components that gives the behavior of that entity, and then you have the system in order to do management, global scope, handing off the logic. It is familiar because it's kind of like the way Unity works and all the different gaming engine that is available to create 3D experiences. So kind of like this, a box contains a position component, geometry, and material. A light bulb has position, light, geometry, material, and shadow. Those are different component systems in order to build that together. Those are good examples. So I wanted to talk a little bit more of this mixed reality experience that I wanted to showcase today, where you can have an AR experience, and it does work on on Quest, where I have an asset, and this asset I can have it in I have it in I can load it into the scene. Inside that scene, I have this cube map that I can showcase. I can show. Let's see if I can get to the the code here. So I have this portal. I have these items right here where I'm loading the Rubik's Cube, loading some of this cube map, which is an asset that is like a puzzle, and then it has this moon texture. It's better to show, and then we'll talk more on how does this flow. Okay, see if I can do that on my phone. Okay, so this is that A-frame. It does include some 3JS and mixed reality. The reason why I say that is because there's some components of this JavaScript library, and this one is the component that expands the capability of what you can do. And this one is using 3JS to do some stuff. Okay. So in this case, I have the moon and then the Rubik's Cube at the bottom, and I can have an AR experience on this. So this is my, if I get that a little bit better, AR experience. You see that it is in that room. I have it where I have this circle thing that's floating in front of me, and I can move closer to it. See if I can get you there. So notice how it's a portal that you can get into, and that is on the browser, right? So I can get to that, move this closer, and then if I look around, it actually is if I can get to that experience still. But you can you get what I'm saying, right? You can go to it, and then it becomes a 360 model, like you're imported to a different world. See if I can do that again. Move a little bit backwards so I can move forward, and I can get to that 360 space, and I can go look around there, and it goes back. So it just depends on how close you move towards that globe, and then it surrounds you, and it gives you a different perspective. So getting into a mixed reality mode. Yeah, so this is a good example of what it looks like. I'm using some of the Chromium tools. There's some Chromium tools. Meta have one. It's called the Immersive Web Emulator that looks like this. So if you don't have a headset, if you wanted to try it out, what does it feel like? You go inside there, and then you can actually look around and move back. So it helps with creating this. Okay. There is some examples out there. Meta have this called Project Flowerbed, where you can have a VR experience right from your browser. You start finding that. So they have that where you can have that experience. And the interesting part is this spatialfusion.io. So if you just bought a new Quest 3, I actually bought one, and this is a good experience because this one is running on the Meta browser or the Quest browser. You can go to this and experience this to where in your living room, it opens up this portal, and then you can play this game, and it's a very interesting game. And I think it's a good example of how far we've had on the edge of this technology and what it can do. But this one is running WebXR on Quest Pro. Okay, going back to our robots. On Rubik's Cube, robots can actually solve this. Yes, it can solve the robots, and it can solve 0.637 seconds. They can solve the Rubik's Cube that fast. It's just amazing technology. Okay. So in summary, what is mixed reality? Mixed reality is a blend of physical and digital world. I did talk about what is WebXR, and that's just the mixed reality specifically for web browsers, and what are the different open source JavaScript libraries out there. One is the model viewer, A-Frame, MindAR. I did talk about Babylon.js, talk about 3JS. If you ask me which one's the easiest one to get to and to get started, I'd say model viewer. And then the second best one that's more extensible is A-Frame. MindAR is actually on top of A-Frame if you want to do some of the marker based. Babylon.js if you want more performance, and then 3JS has a lot more of that capabilities in order to do extensive things that you can do with WebXR. If you want to get the link to my demo today, you can do that. You can actually get the GitHub page over here, github.com/rondagdag/m4js, mr4js devs, or you can scan this QR code and be able to get to the source code that I did, all the things I did demo to you today. Other than that, my name is Ron Dagdag. The best way to contact me is through X or Twitter at Ron Dagdag. LinkedIn is where I do a lot of the communication. So if you can connect with me through LinkedIn. Also, if you go to www.dagdag.net, a lot of my projects, you'll learn more about me is out there. And I appreciate you geeking out with me about mixed reality, about WebXR, and all these different things about Rubik's Cube. And that's it. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ron. It's been an amazing presentation. I really want to do some highlights here because I found that it was fantastic how you wrote the stories and in the intermissions of the Rubik's Cube. I didn't know all of those
Yes.
factual. That is
That
amazing.
is
Your
true. Yes.
presentation I enjoyed it a lot. I think that is such a great idea. I'm learning a lot from you today. I'm super excited. Thank you so much. I understand now why they say that you're a recognized international speaker because you're very creative as well. Thank you so much for sharing all of those
Yes.
interesting facts and how you really tied it so seamlessly with your own presentation. And I
Yes.
also enjoy a lot your live real life demonstrations of
Yes.
platforms like Model, Viewer, A-Frame, MineAR, Victorize,
Yes.
Babylon, 3JS. Thank you so much.
Yes.
That was amazing. I do have a question very quickly here. And is
Okay.
that one of those ones was the easiest platform? You already said Model Viewer, maybe A-Frame. But the
Yes.
second one then is what are the main challenges that you find when building with for web AR that maybe are not very obvious, not very obvious challenges, but that you have found yourself to be.
Well, the good thing about WebXR and a lot of this technology has been more and more getting mature, but there's a lot of blockers, right? Not everyone can use it. I mean, if you have to share it with your friend that has an iOS phone, it's kind of blocked right now. They can't. But if they have an Android phone, they can experience this on their browser. If they have a Quest, it's easy to share that. But of course, if you're building an experience on Quest or on VR gear, then you have to wear it all the time, remove it, because like I said, XR it's experienced through the lens, right? Whatever you're
Yeah.
looking at, yeah. And so that's a trick part of it. It's like I have to wear it and then have to remove it, have to wear it, and that's why they have a lot of different tools, but it's still a little bit clunky to use that tools. Uh, but there's a lot of things that are getting improved upon the
Mhm.
different tools to help us make it easier for us. And it did show you a little bit about how easy it is now. Just to sometimes you just need to get started. So just use model viewer or maybe you just use A-frame to be able to just showcase a 360 video, right? Or you just need something that it's just you just want a 3D model, just display it out there, right? And maybe just the 360 image where it just loads and you have a 360 camera, showcase that, make it part of your website, and that's the quickest way in order to have these experiences out there available for everyone.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much. And for anybody who would like to connect with Ron, you can do it as well on LinkedIn. You can find him as Ron Dag Dag, and also you can visit his website. Thank you so much, Ron, for your amazing presentation today. We definitely learned a lot, and we're gonna continue to do so if we follow you and keep updated with all your work. Congratulations with all the things that you're doing, and thank you for sharing all your amazing experience and all your knowledge. Thank you for sharing with us.
Thank you. I'm glad I'm part of this.
Thank
Appreciate you.
you. Thank you so much, and see you in the next session. Bye for
All
now.
right. Bye.